Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
So let's wait a few minutes to see if someone will join us. So let's wait 3 minutes.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All my microphone tests were not passing. I don't understand. You can hear me, that's what matters.
Loud and clearly, yes.
I got this really cool headset that's Bluetooth, and I can't use it because I can never figure out if it's connected or not. And everybody will say, Tracy, you sound like you're in a tunnel. And it's like, oh, the microphone's pulling off of my laptop, not my headset. It's like if I have my cell phone or somewhere around it, it will go reconnect to something else. Really annoying because it's a really nice headset.
I feel like that was the reason I don't use a Linux laptop anymore, is my AirPod Pros won't connect to it.
Huh,
Yeah,
really?
Bluetooth's a pain.
Yeah, Bluetooth is a pain. I can't even find the headset now. I probably tossed it somewhere. I probably got mad and went, okay, I'm done with this. And it was really cool because you didn't have to put it in your ears. It was bone conducting, so you could just kind of put it around your. I don't know what I did with it. The heck did I do with that thing? But I was having the same problem. I'd be on Zoom and it'd be like, well, it doesn't say my headphones are connected. How do you hear me? Technology, man, it can really trick us sometimes, can't it? Oh, here it is. See, check it out. And instead of putting it in your ear, it goes like against your skull. So you don't have to have something stuck in your ear. It's really, really comfortable, but I can never make it work consistently.
Okay, I think this is everybody. This is my first day as co-chair. So I was like, I didn't even know I was going to run the meeting. So sorry about that. But I guess we can start. I could share my screen with the agenda. Thanks, Alex, for posting it. 1 second. So today we have in the agenda the new TAG App Delivery logo.
So there's a funny issue in the current app delivery issue list with tag app delivery logo. So the kangaroo is almost the same as before. Simply the tag has changed. So if anyone has some ideas or comments about it, feel free to add them to the comments. Otherwise, I think we can close it in the future. But simply wanted to say that there is a new issue for that.
This is just a copy change, right?
Yes, so the seek changed, so the where tag is standing now, there was seek standing before.
Yeah.
Cool. That's good. Okay, so updates on the cooperative delivery working group.
Yeah, Thomas, do you want to take that away or shall I?
Sorry.
Would you like to give a summary or shall I?
I think you can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to. So our last meeting, we had some really good feedback. Thank you everybody for participating in that. And we're sort of finalizing that draft document for the proposal of the working group. Thanks again for Tracy for coming up with such a great name. I think that everybody is pretty happy with that. The things that we took away that we need to still work out is how we wanted to incorporate data. We wanted to also lend a few lines to how we were going to identify tooling such as Helm and why we weren't going to include it in, and what was the reasoning around the selection of tooling and platforms we had identified. And then I think finally we also wanted to look at how would we actually create a survey and how would we actually identify projects in the landscape without trying to boil the ocean. And so I proposed at the end of this bullet point inside of the cooperative delivery working group that I would like to put a draft together for how the survey should look by the next TAG meeting. And this would be a survey that we would give to maintainers, project members, and practitioners within the industry to help us identify the landscape firstly, and to also talk about from an anecdotal point of view, where do they see the current trends of workload delivery on top of provisioned infrastructure. And I think that would help inform us as we go forward. But in terms of the documentation, we were looking to finalize, I would say, the draft of the cooperative delivery working group charter by the end of this week, really. And I'm not sure if anybody had anything to add to that.
Is there anything we should go over in this meeting, or do you think everything is clear at the moment?
Well, I would like to go over the document again I can see there's been a few extra people who have added themselves into the document, and actually there's a slightly larger attendee list here today. So it might be worth spending a little bit of time just going over the current comments that haven't yet been resolved, and to make sure that we're all in alignment with what needs to be added to the document still. And that would just really be helpful for when I go away and make those changes with you later on. Okay, great. Thanks, Jennifer, for sharing it. Yeah, so we went through step by step last meeting around the problem statement, the examples, the working mode and outcomes. And I think most, if not all, of the comments on the right were the outcome of the participants in the meeting. So again, thank you for that. But the most important ones that perhaps so we could spend a few moments talking about was there was some good contribution from Sohail last time about the data model within this. And I went away and thought about it and spoke to a few peers around it. And one of the things that I was going to put to this group is that it almost feels a little bit out of the domain boundary of what we're trying to talk about in terms of, what are the exemplars of how you would do an application deployment on a provisioned infrastructure workload. And I think the data model was something that, whilst we're keen to talk about it, I didn't see a way to weave it into the problem statement. So unless anybody has any other thoughts on this, I was going to suggest that we don't add anything else into that problem statement. So I'll take a pause there. If anyone wants to ask a question about what I'm talking about or has any thoughts. Okay. Well, if no one's in disagreement, then we'll leave that as a comment. You can see Sohail's comment on the right about the data model. We'll just leave, and I'll just make a note, a link to this comment that we're not going to or resolve it. Further down, Jennifer, if you want to go down to the examples of known solutions aimed for deployment infrastructure, this is the only other part of the charter that was slightly contentious. One of the things that Tracy brought up, and I've actually scheduled a meeting with Paulos, who runs CNCF Brazil, or is part of it, and is CNCF ambassador, around the microservices working group that he's looking to propose. That's going to be scheduled on the table, but the broader question, and forgive me if I was putting words into your mouth, Tracy, but I think you were saying, let's consider microservice architectures and how does that fit into deployment infrastructure and applications. So the TLDR for myself is I don't have a way of articulating that in this very simple set of examples of how do we do deployments. But I feel like microservice architecture is an end result of, we want to be able to have a distributed systems landscape deployed. These are two of the kind of domain boundaries or the pillars of getting there. So unless anybody wants to sort of talk a little bit more about that today, that's a work in progress. I'll go and talk to Paulos and we'll gather some more ideas around that, but I'm not quite sure how to articulate that in this document just yet.
One point about, I just wanted to ask about that was, do we want to highlight the difference between the like declarative infrastructure tools and like the non-declarative tools? Like what kind of abstraction layer are we going at? So it looks like we're just like kind of picking some different tools here.
There's a really, thanks, Matthew. That's a really good question. And actually that I think is something that was mentioned last week by, and forgive me, I forget who mentioned it. It might be in the comments, but when we were talking about, do we mention things like customize? Do we mention things like Helm? How far into the minutia do we get? I think what's important is that we're trying to identify two things as per this Venn diagram, right? You're looking at tooling that enables the provisioning of infrastructure versus tooling that enables the provisioning of application workloads. Whether or not that tooling is declarative or non-declarative probably shouldn't be the focus. And maybe for representation, we should have some of both, which I'm not against at all. And maybe that's also why we should have a statement about, we are not specifically identifying tools like Helm, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Alois had a really good point around, effectively, those are CLI tools that are, at the end of the day, those are driving outcomes rather than actually orchestrating change themselves. But I welcome any thoughts you have on it. Like if you want us to put something in, or if you have some thoughts, let's capture them. Let's talk about them now.
Yeah, cool. I think I'll add some notes to the doc then.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And again, this is something we have like another week or two, and we'll come back to this. These examples are very much representative of the folks who are involved in these calls. And so we all come with our own opinions and backgrounds. We didn't go down to the level of actual YAML, like, the conversion of data constructs purely because of simplicity. But I don't think it would hurt to write a paragraph about what are these examples actually capturing, because it didn't see, from your comment, it doesn't seem like that's immediately clear,
And we talked about really defining patterns, and I feel like that the imperative versus declarative, I don't know if we want to position it that way, but they're patterns, and I think that we should be exploring and discussing those patterns.
Yeah, and maybe our language and the taxonomy of words is very powerful here. Maybe we should change it from solutions, examples of known patterns for application deployment versus infrastructure deployment. Would that suit people better?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was trying to say. Like, I think Tracy's kind of articulated it better.
I think keeping the term patterns is, because that's really what we're trying to do, is to define these patterns.
If everyone else is in agreement, I'm in favor of renaming that as well. I'll just do an inline. Okay, that's actually very useful. That helps us to, as a group, understand what our problem area is and what our domain boundaries are. I still think perhaps it would be worth writing a little bit of prose here, or just articulating what these are, but that's really useful. Thank you.
You may articulate what the pros and cons of this tooling.
I think just below that diagram, that illustration, it might be worth just having a few sentences, and I'm happy to go away and have a shot at this and just say, in the below are several examples of patterns that are commonly used throughout the ecosystem for infrastructure deployment and application deployment. These are by no means exhaustive and don't necessarily represent the multitude of tooling around them. However, these are purely to give us a starting point. And if you see, actually, it was Sahel again mentioning down here, you could argue that things like Helm and Customize could be included. And again, this is not to exclude it. It's just to explain why we have these. Another thing, if we have time and we can move down to this, if we're finished on this segment, which might take a little bit more time, is the actual goals, because I think that was one of the things that last time we had a lot of input on. It was really, really useful. And one of the things that I wanted to discuss as per the bullet point in the agenda was, how do we keep the engagement of participants fairly high early on? And I think that we had some open questions around who we would actually approach from a project perspective, and we'd look to try and involve project maintainers at a fairly early point. So I don't know if anybody wanted to interject here, but what I was going to suggest was that we can go once through these goals here, and then at the end of it, it might be worth looking at how we want to actually make a start on the next segment, which is actually building out that survey that we want to propose to our project maintainers and collaborators. Okay, so just to recap then, in the goals, a large part of this working group is a fact-finding group. We're looking at, shining a light and sort of feeling our way to the boundaries of what is currently in vogue in the practitioner ecosystem, but also what are the habits and patterns of behavior when you are delivering an application workload, but also in conjunction with the provisioning of infrastructure, whether that is an ingress, a load balancer, whether that is some stateful process such as a database underneath it. And one of the best ways we feel to do that is to create some anecdotal accounts, but also to create a survey-based sort of system with some vendors and with some participants in the community. The second thing we were looking to do from that was to capture these practices. And we did talk a little bit about a landscape radar at a very high level. And we're not trying to create a panacea here, but at the same time, it's very useful for us to understand in a visual way what currently people are doing. And then the third point, and this dovetails into a proposal, Thomas, if I'd give you a bit of time to talk about, is that we want to create some examples of how this could work. So I think it might be worth you feeding back to the group what you've been doing with Potato Head and where that is in terms of us thinking about bringing that into the sandbox.
Yes, just for your information, we are currently creating the sandbox proposal for the Potato Head. And therefore, we also try to get more projects involved in the future, so that the Potato Head acts as an example app for deploying for various deployment mechanisms, but also for infrastructure, for such infrastructure collaborative delivery use cases. So we also want to create use cases in the Potato Head where you create infrastructure with the application with enough infrastructure. And so this is also one kind of a goal, that we provide these interoperability examples in our projects in the Potato Head, and therefore give the customers the possibility to give the customers an example of how they could implement such things in a comfortable way. So we might also have presentations in the future about different combinations of toolings and different projects and so on. And we also want to provide exactly these examples in the Potato.
Thomas, what's the timeline on the proposal for the sandbox application?
I don't know. I talked to others, I think, on Tuesday, so yesterday, and we said that we want to hand in the proposal this week. And I think the voting is about next week.
It would be really good sequence-wise if we could have the cooperative app delivery charter, cooperative delivery charter and the Potato Head sandbox in for submission at a similar time frame, because I think that would be really empowering from both sides. Cool, thank you. And then the final point of the goals here, and this had a bit of conversation last time, and actually there's some very good feedback, and I'll just cover both parts, is that we wanted to provide patterns in a white paper similar to wonderful work that Jennifer and Omar and Thomas have been doing so far, but actually replicate that in almost a third point of perspective of how the ecosystem is operating, but not being opinionated and not sort of king-making, and looking at things like, what are the lowest common denominators, and then how are we building upon those. And what I mean to say is that in our surveys and in our investigations, we need to start from a baseline. And one of the things that came out of the call last week was we're going on the assumption, so week before last, is we're going on the assumption that users will be operating on container platforms, Kubernetes. There'll be a problem scope that is bound within that. And when we're producing the white paper, it will be talking about application workloads deployed onto Kubernetes-based infrastructure, because I feel like, and I think we also had some discussion around this, that anything more than that, it becomes too diverse, and there are too many permutations. You could start talking about hypervisors, you could start talking about bare metal, and the white paper would feel very, it would be very distilled in terms of what we're trying to achieve knowledge-wise. So this is our kind of final goal, but it'll be predicated on the prior work here. One of the things we didn't cover last week, we covered it. We didn't actually write it down, and I just wanted to mention it here. It's in the comments. Is that we wanted to confirm that we're not looking to create a new type of standard. And the reason I didn't add this in yet is because I went away and spoke to a few folks around how we wanted to word this. There weren't very many good examples in other working groups, but effectively, we're not trying to offer advice on how you should do infrastructure right. And I think, again, Tracy phrased some of these things quite well, in that we're saying that it's not an opinion on how to build microservices or cloud native architecture. This working group is far more an inversion. It is consuming all that data and just sort of presenting it as is, and trying to surface some of the common patterns between it. So I'll make sure that gets added to this charter probably today. And I think that, Jennifer, probably is it for where we are with the charter for this working group.
Just one question, and the last thing you said, is it the case that you are going to just inform things as they are, rather than like suggest a pattern, some sort of standard? Sorry.
Yes, very much so. I mean, I think we look to the security and the operator working group white papers to sort of have a similar tone across them. And yeah, they attempt to be very neutral in their language, and we would like to try and do the same thing. And ultimately, this is to produce a useful document on what is the state of affairs in 2021, and where are the trends looking to go, and also where are some of the pain points, because we're going to be equipped with something that wasn't present in the operator white paper, and that is we'll be hopefully getting a lot of end user interviews that we can use, if not publicly, then at least privately, for some of the more anecdotal parts. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Alex, Thomas, Tracy, Matthew. Okay, so now operator white paper. So we currently we are going to, after this call, have a chat about, because last week we couldn't have a call. We are going to go through the comments and then make a decision on either act on them or not accept, or accept whatever suggestions. So we will be having more of a progress in the following week. Anything to add, Thomas?
No, we had a lot of very good input on the public comment phase of the operator white paper. We had one really good pull request for the white paper for umbrella operators and so on. So I thought this would be very useful, and therefore Daniel created the whole stuff around it, and I think it clarifies many things. And yes, today we'll talk about what we will also try to get into the white paper in the next few days, weeks, and what we could add in a second version. But we will add all of these decisions to the pull request, so everything is reproducible and everything is clear. But one of the we want to get the white paper out at some point in time. So there will not be another public comment period afterwards. So we will create the last content-wise stuff, and afterwards we will publish the white paper.
Just a final point on that, and Jennifer made a good point in the pull request, and I think perhaps this is a wider question to the tag, is I feel like there might be some value in building a taxonomy of words in the way that we're talking about operators specifically, because we see terms like umbrella being used that aren't particularly common and are quite opinionated in their sort of connotations. And so perhaps what we could also do is at the end of this public review phase is to look at the way that we're wording our white paper and to take some of that knowledge and to use it for the next white paper, so that we either have a glossary of terms, or we can at least just learn that there is a certain level of lexicon that we can all benefit from to keep it fairly neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, there were lots of very good observations and ideas, but yeah, like we need to see, like otherwise we can never finish, because it's always so many great things. We can have a newer version for sure. Encourages us. Okay, so the next topic is distributed potato head.
So I would like to ask Kartik that he starts with the case engineering white paper, because I don't know if others will join us today, and then we could talk about the distributed potato if we will join us afterwards.
Okay, so this is going for the next meetings. Okay, okay, next, chaos engineering working group.
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm audible. So we've made some progress on the chaos engineering work group charter. I think in the last meeting we discussed that there was some interest coming in from the other tags, notably tag network and security. And there was a need to collaborate and create a work group. So we've gone ahead and created a charter, which is in the initial stages. We're trying to solicit more feedback around the goals and the operational model for this work group. And so what we have right now, thank you for opening it up. We've just gone ahead
if you prefer to share yourself as well, like, let me know.
Sure, I'll go ahead and do that.
It's easier for you to conduct.
Yeah, so what we've done is defined a few initial sections here, and we are stating the background as to why this work group might be necessary. So chaos engineering has evolved, and what I'm doing now is just trying to go through some of the sections that we've already put and some information that we have gathered in this context. I'll probably also present this in some future meetings once it has gathered more information in it. For now, I'd just like to go through some of the sections that we already have. Thanks to Thomas and Alex, some of the walkthroughs that you've done in the past meetings really helped us to put together what we have right now. So we have the background here, mostly talking about how chaos engineering has evolved, and the paradigm of cloud native computing has gone ahead and tweaked chaos engineering a little bit, while the core principles remain the same the operational model is a little bit different. We've tried to explain in the problem statement as to what those changes are. Mainly, it is about where chaos engineering is run, what kind of environments they are run at, and the persona that executes or implements chaos engineering, and what are the KPIs around chaos engineering in the recent times around what they used to be earlier, etc. So some of that has been mentioned in the problem statement. And we are looking forward to refining this as more opinions come in from other members from the tag networking and tag security, and also the end users who are the real sort of the consumers of chaos engineering. We are seeing a lot of interest in the recent times in the end user community around chaos. So we hope that this is going to be refined as we go. And the goal of this work group again is to be a fact-finding body and place all the practices before the community and let them decide on what's the best approach for them, and not so much as enforcing practices and saying this is what should be followed or these are the frameworks or patterns that need to be used. We'll also revisit the standard original principles of chaos that were put together by the Netflix team long back, about a decade back, and see how it has changed in the cloud native context. And some of the questions that we would like to address, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. We've just gone ahead and placed some questions that we get most often as members of chaos engineering projects, and what we've seen in meetups or community discussions. So some of those questions have been broadly placed here, and there will be an attempt as part of this work group to go ahead and answer some of this or discuss this in more detail and raise more sub questions, so to say, for these particular topics. So that is one set of questions. We are expecting that this will also grow. And as far as the outcome of the work group is concerned, it is going to be a lot of discussion and trying to place patterns and talk about reference implementations or user stories in this particular space. And all that is expected to culminate in a white paper. There is a white paper that we've already started. Some of it is in the initial stages. Once again, in fact, this sort of predates the work group creation by a little bit. We also have some content here which we are trying to expand upon. And having said that, one of the ways we thought we would move forward with this white paper is to gather more feedback from the community in the form of surveys around some of the questions that we have, which will be discussed as part of the work group and also placed inside the white paper. Some of that information is available today. We've got some responses coming in. The surveys are going to be kept open for some more time. We've decided on sort of using this data into the white paper in a week's time or a little bit more. So that is very exciting for us to gather what the community is thinking, and the respondents are a mix of end users as well as chaos projects or vendors, as well as cloud native vendors that are not doing chaos engineering, people who are contributing the other projects on the CNCF landscape but are using chaos engineering for their internal testing needs. So we've got a good mix of information that's come here, which we are trying to sort of validate with some more opinions. So this will give us some fuel into the white paper, and also probably be some of the talking points of the work group. So the goals and non-goals and the working model is yet to be decided or detailed, and we will try to put this information in the due course of the next few weeks. There is a dedicated Slack channel for the chaos engineering white paper, which I think is now going to be modified for this work group, and we will be basically taking this information to some of the other SIG members as well. And the adherence to app delivery and what is going to be the perspective that we will place in this charter as well as the white paper in terms of app delivery is also something that we need to go ahead and write down. So yeah, I think that's where we are at as of now, and we hope to have more information and probably provide a status update the next meeting around this as well.
Thank you, Karthik. It's really exciting to see cross-tag collaboration like this. One of the things I just commented on there, and it'd be good to get some more feedback on, is if we can really underpin the project with collaboration on the Potato Head project to have our reference examples there.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a great point, Alex. In fact, we've gone ahead as a project and listed ourselves as adopters in the Potato Head project. We're big fans of the project, and Litmus is making use of Potato Head in most of its demonstrations or 101 discussions around chaos engineering. So, and especially the distributed Potato Head is also a great help in that respect. So definitely, I think we could use that as a sample application. We will center our discussions around during the work group discussions. Yeah.
Just to recap, you mentioned that it's a work in progress. Will there be a timeline for when we might see some ideas around the initial goals that we can then work on as a tag?
Yep. So I do not have that information right now, Alex, to be honest, but we will go ahead and seek this participation from members of SIG network and security. So we already have the chaos mesh folks who are aligned with SIG network, tag network. And I think we have a meeting that's coming up this week on Friday to state their goals from this work group. And so we will have that information in, and then we would need to get the same sort of information from the folks at Tag Security. I think by next week we will, or by the next app delivery meeting, I think we will have the rest of the sections filled. We will have the goals and non-goals detailed, and we will probably put out a live status of this on the Slack channel as well.
That'd be great. I think it'd be a really good opportunity as well to emphasize the collaboration, the collaborative nature of this particular working group, because it's going to be a lot of interest to various people, and keeping that participation high will be key to being successful.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah, looks very exciting. Is there a list? I didn't double check. Like, is there a list of the interested parties? Cool. I'm curious to know this survey that you put it out. What was the audience? Like how big, and what companies or end users, vendors, both?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a mix for now. The survey is being, the word around the survey is being spread by the chaos projects right now, Litmus as well as chaos mesh. So the respondents mostly are consumers or adopters of this project, and they comprise of both categories: the end users who are not really, let's say, folks like Kitopi or Orange, or those kind of end users who are not really trying to sell anything cloud native, but they're making use of cloud native frameworks for operations. And also cloud native vendors, folks like Red Hat and other VMware, people who are using chaos as a means to augment the testing of some cloud native projects or tools that they are building. So it's a mix of both types as of today. And there's also some representation from the vendors of chaos engineering tools themselves. We've got some responses from Chaos Toolkit folks, for example. So there are different perspectives that are coming in. I think we will have more information, more thoughts streaming in as we go.
Right, thank you. Any more questions? Okay. I think that was it for this type meet. Was the last topic. So okay, I guess that's it. We'll have about 20 minutes back. Thank you very much, everyone. Sorry for lack of preparation. Next time I'll do better.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.